Hey everyone, welcome back. Today we're diving into some pretty intense geopolitics, a developing situation in the Middle East.
Yeah, this is a fascinating one for sure.
We've got a statement from Benjamin Netanyahu to unpack, plus some really insightful analysis from journalists like John Donison who are trying to make sense of what's happening over there in Syria.
What's really interesting here is that it kind of puts a spotlight on Israel's position.
Right.
They're grappling with this whole civil war in Syria and the potential collapse of the Assad regime, which, throws everything up in the air.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, so let's back up for a sec for anyone who needs a little refresher. We're talking about the Golan Heights, right? It's a strategically important area that borders both Israel and Syria. Israel captured it back in '67 during the Six-Day War,
Yeah,
and it's been a source of tension ever since, obviously.
absolutely. And for decades, things were kept in check by this separation of forces agreement. It was signed in 1974, and it basically froze the conflict.
Right.
It created this buffer zone in the Golan Heights,
Yeah.
patrolled by UN peacekeepers.
So it was like an uneasy peace, but peace nonetheless.
Right.
But now, with Syria in chaos, this agreement has basically fallen apart, and that's got Israel pretty concerned, I would imagine.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
And this is where Netanyahu's statement comes into play. It provides a really interesting window into how Israel is thinking about this whole situation. He calls the potential fall of Assad a historic opportunity, but also a historic danger, which is a pretty loaded statement.
It is. It's like he's acknowledging that while this might present some new possibilities, there are some serious risks involved. Like, it's not all good news for Israel.
Yeah.
He also sort of seems to be implying that Israel played a role in Assad's downfall. He talks about how Israel's been striking Hezbollah and Iranian forces inside Syria, both of whom are allies of Assad.
Right. And that's a really important point. I mean, whether or not you agree with it, this reveals how Israel sees itself in this whole regional power struggle.
Yeah.
They're not just sitting back and watching this unfold. They're active participants.
Totally. And they're definitely not just waiting to see what happens next either. Netanyahu also announced that they're taking control of that buffer zone, the one that was supposed to keep the peace for all these years, as a temporary measure to secure their border.
That's a big move.
It is.
And John Donison, in his analysis, calls it a provocative action by Israel. But he also says that, given the circumstances, it's understandable why they're doing it.
Yeah, you can see both sides of that for sure. Okay, so let's hear what Netanyahu himself had to say. This is the part where things really get interesting.
All right.
Listen closely because there is a lot packed into this statement.
Okay.
Like, they're trying to control what happens in this area,
Mm.
It's a region famous for not being very predictable.
Yeah.
And it really makes you think, how did Israel even get into this situation in the first place?
Well, to understand